even enough level to what we expected, even when he was participating in school. But yeah, with everything being shut down, I guess he's had even more time to practice on the European server. So how is he going to do cross-server back in Latin America? Are you be playing on East, I believe, so it's not that bad. In the bottom right of Death Aura, we have the blue Terran, currently living in the Netherlands. He is Kelazhur.
And of course, on the top left side, we look at the main base of our Brazilian Zerg player that has been spending quite some time in Korea, but he's back in Brazil. It is Erik. That is. You know, I was thinking about what Wadi said. I was like, yeah, Kelazhur is playing from the Netherlands, right? So he's going to have a little bit of a ping. And I was actually bringing that up before we were live. But then while we were live, I was not going to bring it up. I was like, that's a really stupid thing to say. Because Erik is playing from Brazil. It's not like this server, US East, is in Rio de Janeiro, right? So Erik will probably still have a higher ping than Kelazhur does. Even though Kelazhur's ping might not be perfect, Erik's ping is far from perfect, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. It is kind of on that fair server, actually. So that worked out nicely for them. Kelazhur is not going to let playing from Europe stop him from 3 racks reapering his opponent, which is exactly what he is doing. And, well, that's what we'd expect. Erik did something interesting. He went for a 14 hatch, I believe it was, with a extractor trick. So I actually don't know what this... I see it, you know, sometimes in ZVP, but I feel like I just don't see it in ZVT. So we're going to see what it does. I mean, maybe he's predicting Kelazhur will 3-rack him. I'm sure these guys are very used to how Kelazhur can play. Mm-hmm. Or if this leads to something different. But otherwise, it looks like a normal setup.
Yeah, I have the feeling that these games are not going to be super normal. There you go. 2-minute Roach Warren for Erik. That's about as quick as you're ever going to get it. Even before this Overlord really identified that multiple barracks were built on the low ground. I think this has a lot to do with Erik just saying, like, I know Kelazhur, I know what he's capable of, I know he loves Reapers. Let's just get that super quick Roach Warren. So I'm going to defend with a couple of Roaches. And after that, I'm going to try to pull economically ahead. But these games are always weird, right? Because how do you go up to 3 bases if you're Erik? You basically don't for a very long time.
Yeah. It is kind of weird. You know, at one point when the Reapers were at the height of the popularity, we're talking Bjorn, basically, the Roach response was the response. They get the Ravagers, they have the extra range, they can kind of help out, and that was the important stopping of the snowball effect. You know, recently, if you saw 3 racks, especially if it's not proxied, like, we have seen more so just, like, trying to keep things level, trying to basically play a normal game, but use your speedlings really well, keep your queens alive. So I am kind of worried that Kelazhur could take something like this kind of, in a way, extreme defense, considering what other Zergs are doing, and actually still run away with a macro game. And actually, we should talk about Kelazhur's micro. He could even start chipping away at these Roaches if he's really good. Yep.
So far, everything on point. I kind of like how Erik made 3 Roaches, then immediately fired up 8 drones. He didn't do something silly, like, well, I actually made 4 Roaches, excuse me, but he didn't make too many, right? He didn't overreact. He didn't just sit there on a horrible economy. He's like, nope, I've got my immediate safety Roaches out. It is important, though, that he doesn't lose them, and they're pretty far off creep, so the first Roach goes down. And like I said, I like the fact that he built... Oh, my goodness, the creep tumor gets picked up as well. He needs some extra Roaches now, because this can actually go bad real quick here for Erik. As another Roach goes down, 3 out of 4 Roaches have gone down at this point. He's building 6, and that should keep him okay, but you don't want to lose the queens here.
I think Erik is very well aware that the Roach defense can sometimes lead to an unfortunate game where you still get out-macroed. So he was trying to play that very, like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he tried to play a very delicate game. And instead, what can happen is, you know, if you don't have the perfect number of Roaches, if you don't have any Ravagers alongside those Roaches, you still end up with a snowball effect. Even though you're like, I have Roaches, I should be fine. Not always.
Especially off creep. I honestly think if those Roaches would have just been a little closer towards creep, that wouldn't have been that bad. I don't think it's super bad at this point, but obviously Roaches are a little bit slower than Reapers. I really like what Kelazhur is doing so far. I almost feel like we're watching a Reaper Clinic 101 by Professor Kelazhur over here. And it's like, you know, I can just totally see him speaking into the microphone in a very calmly manner. This is where we throw down additional grenades and pick up queens one by one.
And this is where we continue building Reapers, even though they think we won't. Yeah, exactly. There is an overlord from Erik to try and determine like what type of game this is. But even as he sees more Reapers come across the map, this is also Kelazhur going for 2 command centers. He knows he can control the flow of the game. Even if the Roaches were to go across the map, we've seen how bad they are off creep. In fact, even someone on creep, they all get demolished. The drones are forced to be pulled, and this might just be too much of a snowball.
Yep, that is going to be a really good grenade placement, making it impossible for those Roaches to fight because they were basically mid-air all the time. That's the real power of the grenade at this point. It's not even so much about relocating units, it's just about stopping them from fighting your units. The Reaper micro really good. 9 drones have gone down there. Now Erik does have a little bit of money in the bank. He is going to throw down that Spire, but with Stim already on the way, 2 E-bays in the main base of Kelazhur, this is just a fantastic start. And I don't see how Erik goes up to 3 bases here. There's just no way that he can protect all 3. So he's going to be forced to stay on 2 bases a little bit longer. And that's obviously not really where you want to be.
The old-fashioned response to Reapers not working out, although it's supposed to kind of be the strongest, it does take the most dedication. And in this case, it didn't even do a good job of perfectly defending. In fact, very imperfect. The Spire play might be a bit tricky, but Kelazhur, he didn't try and... He was not afraid of the Roaches. He didn't like say, oh, I immediately need to build tanks and I'm stuck on these units. I don't need to build Banshees. He actually just stuck on barracks, got the upgrades, and is building more barracks. Like, he's going to have enough presence of Marines, obviously the ability to build into missile turrets, that I don't think 2-base Spire is all that scary. But I also think that it might be the only choice. Like, I can't think of anything else that would actually give Erik a leg up here.
I mean, it would have maybe a Desperation Nidus would have been cool, but obviously then you put all your eggs in one basket, and if it doesn't work, you're gonna have a very underwhelming game. I think this was one of these scenarios where pretty much every single choice Erik was going to make was going to be the wrong one way or the other. And I can see him trying to get lucky with Mutas, but Stim is done. I mean, I think we have a turret. No, we don't have any turrets yet, but we're just going to have so many Marines. The production of Kelazhur is already so good at this point. I don't really see what Erik can do, and I don't think that Erik really knows what he's going to do either. He's going to try probably to send them to the other side of the map immediately. Perfect scan by Kelazhur as well in the main base. Sees when these Mutas pop, has some time to throw up a couple of turrets now. And this game just ain't pretty.
I think Kelazhur was respecting either option of Nidus Worm or Spire, but with the amount of economy he has, he was able to probably respond to either one. Maybe the Nidus Worm would literally popped up then and there, but even then he had quite a lot of bio units. In this case, 7 Mutas will not take on the Marines. They will not take on a missile turret. At best, they can just try and roam around, kill SCVs, but you're up against someone with 3 CC. On location, by the way, and you're losing Mutas! Down to 4.
Well, he lost 3 Mutas there already while killing 6 SCVs. That's obviously not good enough with the economy that Erik is working with. Reapers are going to be annoying once again in the main base. They will all go down, but not before taking a whole bunch of drones with them. As Kelazhur is actually doing more economic damage to Erik than Erik was able to do on the other side of the map while losing Reapers while losing Mutas on top of it. Aye. It's painful.
Kelazhur is just setting up for his push with combat shields in 1-1, or he's going to get pushed first and still, like, either way, he's going to obliterate the army. So apparently Erik's pushing across the map, but it's not like he really has any good reason to. He saw how big the army is, how good the production is. He's just trying to play, like, you know,
it's like slow Zerglings. I think Erik forgot he doesn't have Zergling speed.
I think he's just desperate, you know. He's even pushing prior to Roach speed. Like, I think this is the throw your hands up and just go for it, but
I've never seen slow Zerglings run into Stim Bio though on the other side of the map. I don't know if you can really go for it, because I think it's going to get shut down before any of them gets a single tap off. That's just really sad for Erik. It's been a rough game.
Oh, this might stop Kelazhur from pushing, just as he's like, oh, wait, are you all-inning me? And it's like, well, maybe, kind of, but it's just it's really hard to call it since that third base not having any drones. It's also just because of the situation Kelazhur put Erik in. So he's going to go for a bit of a safer option here, go for a drop and keep his army at home. That is the safest option. Yeah. But yeah, again, like either option would have worked for Kelazhur. The army's in the middle of the map, going to the acceleration zones, again, looking for an attack, this time with at least Roach speed. Well, there's no tanks available. The upgrades look terrible for Erik, and the armor supply is not convincing for a Roach army.
Now we saw earlier Clem against Denver, where Denver had a 40 or 50 supply army advantage, and we weren't really feeling it. We kind of knew that the writing was on the wall for that game. This time it's the Terran who's got the bigger army, and it's also 2 upgrades ahead, soon to be 4 upgrades ahead. Those are just things that I don't say very often. We do have a fight in the acceleration zone. Look at the beautiful Terran micro. They're stimming so fast. I love it.
That is so freaky looking. Looks like an arcade mod. That is going to go favorably for Kelazhur. Even as Erik tries to get some lucky corrosive bios, he has hit the medivacs once or twice more than you would expect, but his roach buffer for the Ravagers is going down, and thus the Ravagers also go down. GG.
9,200 resources went down for Erik that game, 3,900 for Kelazhur. That's pretty much as good of a first game as Kelazhur could possibly hope for. I like Erik's initial opening. I love the 4 immediate roaches, respect it, and then went into the droning immediately rather than being stuck at that low economy and make 6 or 7 or 8 roaches and play it overly safe. It's just that the roaches were a little bit too far off creep, and that wouldn't have been a big deal if you don't go up against a great Terran. But Kelazhur saw an opportunity, launched a couple of great grenades, pushed those roaches even further off creep, and all of a sudden Erik was in dire straits, because then he ended up losing the queen, lost a couple drones, was forced to make way more roaches, but they spawned one by one. It just... against Kelazhur's Reapers, you're just not allowed to make any big mistakes early on, and I think putting the roaches where Erik put them was just a little too much.
Even if you go for the other response, the one I was saying that most Zergs go for, usually it comes around like, can they take a third base, like play a normal game? And even that has a point where it's just like, I think I got this. Oh no, I don't. Oh no. And then you just snowball. Like, that is the power of the Reapers. It's always been the power of the Reapers. But the weakness of the Reapers has been, especially after their nerfs, that it can snowball pretty harshly the other way. I mean, we've seen Thermal try and do it versus Cyril, and the first time Cyril was like, okay, what is this? And then he's been fine against that. I remember, like, I think it was like last year. So it can look in reverse, but Kelazhur has been known for his Reaper micro. I think he fears he's the better player. He figures his macro behind it will be better, even if it doesn't do that much damage. And he just, wants to get the early tap out.
Kelazhur is just a pretty complete player all around. I think just for a while, I kind of thought that sometimes he was stuck on just pure stimmed bio medevacs for a little too long. And then once in a while it would either be Vikings if you really needed those, or it would be mines, or tanks, or Liberators. But it's never like a very sophisticated Terran army, right? It's never the Liberators with advanced ballistics, the ghosts, the nice setups with tanks, widow mines, bunkers. It was just a bit like, let's get as much bio as possible and start dropping all over the place. And he's damn good at that. He's got great macro at home. He's got fantastic multitasking. But I think over the last few months, I've seen him like tack up a little bit more as well on the Terran side, not just be stuck with Marines and Marauders forever. And that makes him even more intimidating, even though he didn't need that in the previous game. But and then on top of that, he's got fantastic early game strategies with one base all-ins, proxy Reapers defensively. Kelazhur is a pretty complete player. Add on top of that, damn good execution, and hey, there you go.
It's a tough character to beat because there's really no great response. There's no weakness that you can pinpoint. And Erik even got like a really good start, most people would say. He was supposed to hard counter the Reapers, and it didn't even end up looking like that. It looked like he made the wrong decision. Oh, I made a right one. It's just execution is everything in StarCraft. In the top right, actually, once again, sorry, in the bottom left, never mind. Sorry, Observer. In the bottom left, as the blue Terran, he is Kelazhur.
And actually in the top right, we look in the main base of our Brazilian Zerg player. Let's hope for a better game 2 for him. It is Erik.
He's doing the same build as what I was. It's going to be a perfect intro, Roddy. Really?
Yeah, what is this? This is indeed kind of an odd way to open up, right? 14 hatch. What is it? Do you think that this is very good against proxy barracks? Like, let's say he's going to get 2 racks or 3 racks. Do you think this helps to get like a quicker queenie in natural?
So that's what I was wondering. I mean, last game it ended up looking like a response to the 3-Rax Reaper, and Kelazhur's so well known for it, I could absolutely see Erik trying to do it. But as far as a response to a person you think is absolutely going to 2-Rax or 3-Rax you, I'm pretty sure Zergs don't do this. If anything, they just make sure to scout with a drone sometimes. That sometimes happens, but not this early of a hatch. I think Erik might have actually maybe been looking for a cheese and just coincidentally found a cheese that hit him first. But it is hard to say unless we see the exact same build here. If we see the exact same build, he sends roaches across the map, I think we'll know what his plans were generally for the best of 3.
It's interesting because even though he takes a very early hatch in the natural, then he makes a relatively early spawning pool of a low drone count. It's not like his gas is super early, you know. It takes it 1 minute and 22 seconds into the game. That's definitely not that crazy quick. So that's kind of one. The Eternal Empire is such a big map, though, that I highly doubt you want to run a couple of roaches to the other side of the map. I mean, Bly would be like, yeah, it's not bad, but you know, like I think most people will probably go for a little more of a macro-oriented strategy here. So I'm curious to see where Erik takes it. He is sending out the drone, so he's going to go up to 3 bases, which is good news for, I think, all of us, because that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and I think you're right about bringing up the map as well, Eternal Empire. Maybe not the best for it. Sometimes that works in its favor. It's a bit surprising. But Kelazhur not doing any proxies. Erik's kind of figured that out by now. Saw the Reaper. I'll say this reveals the command center first for the most part. And otherwise, just keeping his Overlord in the bottom right to get further scouting. Because while Kelazhur can do the Reaper thing, can do the proxy barracks thing, if he thinks he's the better player, I actually think that he can also do some weirder stuff in the mid-game, like double factory openers and whatnot. So I think that's important for Erik to have proper scouting. It does look like Erik's opening was defensive.
I think it is going to be maybe some Hellions into Cloak Banshee here. I've got a feeling about Hellions and Cloak Banshee. Knowing Kelazhur, and I feel like that's something that he's able to shine with as well. I've praised his multitasking before, and it's really hard. Like a lot of these things, we see it all the time, and you might sit at home and be like, well, how hard is it to vent? Like everybody knows this opening. But then when you go up against somebody like Kelazhur, it's suddenly like, man, they're everywhere. Their Hellions are always at a place you don't want them to be. And then you're focusing a little too much on the Hellions, and that's when those 2 Cloak Banshees show up, and they start one-shotting drones. It can spiral out of control real quick, and we all know how unforgiving StarCraft 2 is already. So I hope for Erik that he's going to have first of all, a proper scout, so he knows that this is coming, and second of all, that, he's going to have units in the right position, because that's basically what his entire defense for the Zerg boils down to.
It is scary for players who aren't quite on the same level, same MR, whatever you want to say, to go up against even the Hellion Banshee opener. For us in our own league, it's probably sometimes devastating, but not often. When you face these guys who are able to constantly, good snipe that one Hellion, but they're able to constantly just always looking for opportunities. There's no point where they're back at home macroing for 10 seconds. It's half a second that they're back to looking for opportunities with the Hellion Banshee. Can actually end games even against someone as good as Erik. That's when we start talking about being high MMR and being tournament contenders.
Absolutely. I mean, even so far, I feel this is going pretty good for Kelazhur. Now the Queens are out of position as well. Obviously, this time he doesn't want to dive in just yet, but getting all those Zerglings early on was nice, and just very shortly, or very briefly rather, dipping into the 3rd base, getting 2 drones there, getting out of there, not taking any damage at all. All of these things, they do start adding up. And Erik has a 7-worker lead, but he's going to be forced to produce units for quite some time now, and I think he knows that. Gonna have to really respect what's coming his way, as Cloak is finishing up, and let's see if Kelazhur can find more damage.
At least he knows it's on the way, so the proper response as far as not to take any more damage is here, but as far as still macro very well, that's something we actually have to question. Seems okay so far. Baneliness is pretty safe timing for that, maybe a little bit on his lair. Okay, catching the Hellions on creep with that many lings, maybe, not quite. Kelazhur's Hellions, a little covered in butter, so 4 of them still alive, can still look for that damage. But at this point, Kelazhur, okay, well, he's, I was going to say he doesn't really have to pay attention to his Hellions, and there you go.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think if you still have 4 of them, that's going to be kind of annoying. Even if it's not so much about what they can get done, it's just to make Erik look away, and that will allow these Banshees to be more successful. But the Banshees are going to show up over here in the natural. They'll still grab a couple of drones. They can get a few more, because Erik sent the drones back a little too early, if you ask me, as he ends up losing 3 more drones. Think about going into the main base now. Main base and natural not completely connected by creep, and that's going to make it a little bit harder for these queens to be here in time. Jess, this is already starting to be pretty severe.
Yeah, we can take a look at the macro of Erik and see that maybe the direct damage doesn't look that bad, although 8 drones is pretty bad. It's even worse than that. His macro is slipping a little bit. His 4th base isn't coming down. He doesn't have any technology. I mean, he's just adding on the evolution chambers, and I thought he was going to go into a spire. So if he's going to stick on pure Ling Baneling, they're going to be way behind in those upgrades. Creep also has been stalled out, as all of the queens have been following the Banshees. And everything's just offset more so for Erik than Kelazhur. As we can see, his mineral is very low, his gas is timed up well, and His third CC is on location, and he's doing a well-timed 7-minute push on top of the 4th base.
Yeah, and this is not something I think Erik wants to mess with. He does get 14 banelings immediately. I love to see that, but baneling speed is only halfway done. So I think it is going to be rather hard to keep this hatchery alive for now. And I mean, if you want to play Hydrolink Bane, you absolutely do need these 4 bases. The tank is going to siege up baneling speed, roughly 15 to 20 seconds away. Do you just go for it, Erik? Maybe if the queens can soak up the first shot, you can actually go for it. But losing this hatchery is normally not a choice. 9 seconds to baneling speed. He's setting up a flank, but the hatchery is starting to run real low.
Yeah, the flank might be good enough. We'll see how the tank does. Actually, the Banshees as well could pick off a lot of the banelings on the retreat. So far, so good. Covering the banelings, getting back on a creep with the queens. That was nicely handled. Kelazhur just kind of got up and abandoned his tank, but he is already ready with the second push. This time he's going to have combat shields. And he's still feeling confident. There's not a lot of creep spread for Erik to work with.
Nope, and even the baneling count is not that crazy high. I mean, 13 banelings off creep, 1 tank in the mix at this point. I am actually not sure if that's going to be enough for Erik, who's still floating a little bit of money. He tried to make as many Hydras as possible, but engaging. If these tanks set up on the high ground, obviously this 4th base is going to be in a lot of trouble as well. There is a baneling counterattack happening on the right bottom side, which is cute and all, but we all know, once again, this hatchery is super important. This is not something that you would like to defend. You have to defend it, and Erik goes for it, and this time it actually looks pretty good. Gets the tank immediately, has a couple of banes on the left side as well. Excellent defense. Let's see what the banelings can do on the other side of the map.
Ooh, Kelazhur not paying attention. 10, I'll make that 14. Actually, the last few are going to go down as well. 16, the entire mineral line as Kelazhur was focusing on his micro. Maybe a little too fancy, getting a little overconfident that he could end the game on a push like that, and he couldn't. And now he's been reset, not just in the worker count, but also the momentum.
Yep, now we've got a game on our hands, I feel. That's exactly what Erik needed. He needed to catch a break, gain some momentum. I love how those were the initial banelings that he morphed on his side of the map. He sent them all the way through the right bottom side, and they just casually rolled in there and managed to take down 18 SCVs. And all of a sudden, Erik is still on 4 bases, can potentially start utilizing that rich Vespian geyser. Yeah, I feel like we've got a game. He survived a very scary phase where things actually look very bad. As we have a little link counter as well. It's going to dive on top of the tank. Can he get the tank? I don't think so. No, unfortunately not. Maybe if he had the 1-1 upgrades.
Yeah, maybe. That was a bit of an anti-timing. Unfortunately, as he finishes his 1-1 to catch up to Kelazhur, Kelazhur finishes his 2-2. Second factory, 4th CC on the way. Kelazhur's macro is still working out, even though his micro didn't win him the game. But Erik is choosing to go for a pretty quick hive, and much more importantly, going to be playing with lurkers. Still kind of an underdeveloped style overall, but we've seen a lot of top Zergs try this out.
Yeah, Raynor has been a big fan of the Lurker recently in this matchup. And that's actually the unit that Erik used against Time as well. I remember it was a spectacular game. And I knew it was like spectacular for many ways, but I forgot the most important thing. He used Nidus networks all the time with Lurkers. So he managed to get like 7-8 Lurkers into mineral lines over and over again on top of the ramp in the main base. And Time had to like stim through all those Lurkers. That one was so special about the game. Now I finally remember. So I hope that Erik can survive a little bit longer. And we can get to see some of that as banelings connect here with a couple of Marines. That's another good connection there in the end. Even though Erik is going to have to send a few more units here and he needs to keep that money a little bit lower. But if he survives, this can actually become super fun.
A Nidus from the main can be catastrophic. It completely resets momentum. Everything has to return to the main to deal with it. Like, Lurkers the main is quite obnoxious, in fact. But a lot of queens just went down there. No replacing the creep, at least not easily. Kelazhur's drop actually finding more than it should have, considering the banelings got good connections.
Yep, and now we have a hit squad as well on the top side of the map, and that means that this 5th base is going to get killed, not even cancelled. I was already ready to say the word cancelled. The drop in the natural is actually going to deflect for now. That's such a shame for Erik. I mean, as long as he's hanging in there, he's on 86 drones. I mean, that is a pretty sick number. He's got double evos going. He still has a couple of banelings at this point to work with, so he's not in any immediate danger of dying. Hydras are maybe not as good as Mudas in shutting down drops, but they can be all right. Like, they should be able to get a couple of shots off here and there.
Eventually clean it up. It's okay if there's not a direct push that's really forcing, you know, the big confrontation. But this is exactly what Kelazhur's doing. He's got 2-2, halfway to 3-3, clearing up all the creep, once again taking out the queens, and Lurkers aren't really ready to go.
Very, very big supply block. Erik lost one Overlord in the main base, and he was already close to being supply blocked. Now he was supply blocked hard, and he built 6-7 Overlords at once, and he still got 1,600 minerals in the bank and 1,300 gas. That just goes to show he needs to survive a little bit longer. He's going to build a couple of Vipers immediately. Actually engages now, thinking Kelazhur is not paying attention, and he was kind of right, as he takes down quite a few Marines there. If Erik spends his bank, I actually really become a believer in this game. Kelazhur scans, and yeah, he just needs to hang in there like for another minute. I hope he survives.
Yeah, you can see the power of lurkers if he does. 7 are finally on the way. We also got Vipers on the way, so still managing to have just enough gas to afford all these late game units. Wait, wasn't that's fast burrow? That's actually not what you usually see come out first for the lurkers.
No, that's
usually...
range. That's the range.
We got burrow. Range is being researched right now, right?
Oh yeah, no, he got adaptive talents indeed before burrow. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No worries, no worries. Yeah, so that's usually not what you see. You see the range first almost always, but if you can get to both, that makes lurkers very, very powerful. Erik also going to be prepared to not just jump on top of tanks, but just blinding cloud them or even abduct them. Like either one's going to work as a powerful unit combination used well. But that's the thing, is that it's a developing style.
I'm actually there as the Nidus net works as well, by the way. This is so cool. I really hope that Erik is able to pull it off, as we do have a drop in the main base that is taking down a couple of drones. And yeah, these bases are on the fire. Erik is counterattacking during all of this. Could have a couple of Hydras there just on the high ground, picking up SCVs. This game is about to get real crazy. You know, oh my goodness, look at Erik's mineral. He's got so many minerals. I know he just lost the rich Vespian guys, but it's still, like, it hurts me to see it. He builds 20 Hydras at once. Okay, well, that's the way to go through your bank.
Yeah, that does the trick. A little unfortunate he continued to push into the 2 tanks defending that 3rd. I think he could have done the high ground on top of the 4th minerals for Kelazhur, but maybe I'll try that again later. Vipers in kind of the middle of nowhere. They were looking for a backstab, and instead found by the Marines. 2 of them go down. Ugh, that was not what he was hoping for.
Nope, 2 out of 3 Vipers go down, and the other one was forced to use its energy on blinding clouds and just a couple of Marines. Big counterattack now by Erik, realizing that it's mostly tanks here and not that many Marines. I gotta say, the Zerglings are not getting the best fight at first, but Banning should be able to connect with a couple of these SCVs, as we do have a big fight still unfolding on the other side of the map. Can they actually get on top of it? No, the planetary fortress is gonna keep them safe, but this is still a pretty good counterattack.
Yeah, I mean, for the units that were defending, that seems like an awful lot from Erik, but he does have some bank to spend, despite losing 2 bases. He has taken the middle right, which Kelazhur does not know about, and he's kind of stopped being so drop-heavy, so maybe he'll get away with that. But, you know, if he continues doing that, it's going to be a little concerning. I think you also want to have maybe a few more lurkers before you feel really confident about that number. And he does need to replace those Vipers, which are very, very expensive.
Yeah, that's such a shame. He had 3 Vipers almost full of energy. And he was, I think, indeed kind of trying to land a couple of cool blinding clouds from the bottom. But they just got caught in a very awkward spot. And Erik still does have this base at 3 o'clock. That's something he can work with. He's going to get his missile attack upgrades as well. I mean, I still kind of believe, I would love to see an Overseer during all of this sneak into the main base just to get a couple of lurkers. I understand that he can't send all of them at this point, because then he's going to lose the last remaining bases. But just a couple of lurkers in the main base can really make Kelazhur panic as well.
Another base goes down. He didn't cancel the last one, so a bit expensive, but Kelazhur has the bank for it. He's trying to hold on here and on the front lines of his opponents. The Vipers go down. The lurkers couldn't jump on top of those tanks quite enough. And actually, the concave, these lurkers are also going to go down. Kelazhur just barely held on to that planetary, took out a lot of units with it. Erik's supply just now in the gutter. I think that might be it.
That planetary was a real fortress. It just survived like 20 Banelings and 20 Hydras there. The Banes were kind of clumped up between the Hydra, or behind the Hydras rather, so they couldn't really get the connection that they're looking for. Erik is gonna make a last-ditch effort here on trying to clean up this push that has been going on for so long. And to be honest, it's mostly medevacs at this point, but Erik just has nothing left.
I think Erik's style can be really cool. It's kind of doing a style that Zerg doesn't typically get to do, GG, which is like,